This video is sponsored by Nebula, the streaming service with me on it. When I was a kid, Godzilla existed as this big, weird lizard from Japan. I didn't watch his movies, but the general consensus was that it was iconic, goofy cinema. He was campy and ridiculous and fun. Because of this, the first Godzilla film, the one from 1954, always became kind of a fun factoid. Did you know it was actually really dark? Did you know that it took itself seriously? When this information was exchanged, it always came with one bit of interpretation: that before he was bastardized through endless sequels, Godzilla was a metaphor for the atomic bomb. That's true. I mean, obviously that's true. Godzilla in that movie is a direct consequence of nuclear testing. He is radioactive, he destroys Japan, he is explicitly compared to the bomb. There's no denying it. That being said though, I want to look here at one scene toward the beginning of the film. A woman sits on a train talking about Godzilla, and she says this: I just barely got out of Hiroshima and now I have to deal with Godzilla? It's an iconic line, funny and sad. The bomb here is not imagined as horrific or terrifying, but almost as an inconvenience, an irritating burden which must be lived with and thought about. This scene troubles our analysis, doesn't it? If Godzilla is the bomb, if that is what he is exclusively meant to represent, then what the hell is the literal bomb doing here? What is the point of having both when they are supposed to be one in the same? Why reinvent what is already right there in the movie staring at us? Anyway, in this video, I want to talk about what Godzilla is, what he means, and why we need him even though the bomb already dropped. Between 1979 and 1982, Jenny Holzer produced a series called Inflammatory Essays. The essays, printed on colored paper and placed on a massive wall, are very strange and all over the place. One of them is a justification for an extremely punitive justice system. A cruel but ancient law demands an eye for an eye. One of them is about the goodness of freedom and the end of authority. One of them is about the torture of looking at sexy girls. One is a kind of authoritarian, fascist-adjacent manifesto. Because there is no God, someone must take responsibility for men. A charismatic leader is imperative. He can subordinate the small wills to a great one. He merits absolute loyalty. He demands absolute devotion. He is the only hope. There is something obviously prescient about this piece. After all, walls like these dominate our lives. Endless sequences of outrage and anger, extreme beliefs placed next to each other, boosted by algorithms that encourage us to keep looking. This is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the structure of modern discourse, the shape of the world. Looking at inflammatory essays, it's impossible to avoid thinking about the role of its author. Jenny Holzer must like some of these essays more than other ones, right? On one hand, she is not, to my knowledge, very interested in the idea of a charismatic totalitarian leader who will submit our wills to his own. I doubt she's super into the death penalty or thinks snakes are evil. On the other hand, I want to believe she is opposed to the amount of material inequality in this world, affronted by the way the homeless are treated, disgusted by a society of voyeurism and tragedy-seeking. We believe certain things, and we want the wall to believe those things too, but it doesn't. Everything about this work pushes us away, defers the possibility of its own meaning. The essays contradict each other, believe opposite things. There is no greater weight put on any particular essay, no indication that Holzer agrees with some and disagrees with others. Even the name of the piece is almost ridiculing us. You want to discover some purpose? You want to know the point of this art? Well, I'm telling you, the purpose is to inflame, to make you mad. It is easy to imagine the end of the world happening through an absence, an occurrence after which nothing remains. But to look at this piece is to see another possibility. A world with no substance, not because nothing is there, but because everything is. Every idea that could be had, every claim a person could make. This series of essays represents the point at which there is no thread left to follow, no meaning left to hold. There is too much, and none of it tells us anything. The atom bomb was a decision. People stood around in rooms, wore lab coats, performed tests, all because the American government under Harry Truman and FDR decided they wanted to kill a bunch of Japanese civilians in the most horrifying way possible. This is true about Godzilla. He is here now, terrorizing Japan because of a bureaucracy, because of the state and its nuclear testing. He is what we are asking for when we ask for the bomb. He is the outcome of war and the technology we use to fight war. The thing that happens when the world is broken and keeps getting more broken. But at the same time, Godzilla is an old guy, like really old. Not to blow your mind, but he is literally a dinosaur from the Jurassic era, and what's more, he's been around in Japanese culture for a long time. As this guy toward the beginning of the movie says, when there were less fish in the ocean, Godzilla would always rear his ugly head. There used to be a ritual to put him at peace where a young woman was murdered. Even as the man is discussing ritual sacrifice, there's something melancholic, nostalgic about his speech here. Because Japan has lost something, a center, a place in the world, a culture, an empire. They still have the dance, but it doesn't have substance. There is no longer killing. And you can't help but ask, looking at this scene, could an older Japan have solved this problem? The old man says they made a sacrifice. He seems to think that worked, so could it work now, if we wanted it to? Is there another ancient world that could have dealt with Godzilla, could have lived with the monster? In this way, through this tension, Godzilla becomes unfixed in time, representing two opposing forces. Godzilla is modernity, but he is also the culture that modernity destroyed. Godzilla is the bomb, but he is also a memory of the world without bombs. The 2001 film Conspiracy is a retelling of the Wannsee Conference, the meeting on January 20th, 1942, at which a group of high-ranking Nazi officials decided upon the final solution, the extermination of the Jews. On first pass, the movie seems quite direct. It is here to give us an account of this important historical moment, and it does a great job at it. But I think it gets a lot more complicated than that. Conspiracy is, at its core, about words, about the difficult process through which words come to mean things. You can see this most obviously when it comes to the use of euphemism in the film. Conspiracy chooses a popular interpretation of the Wannsee Conference that says that when these Nazi officers said that they wanted to evacuate the Jews, they were simply trying to avoid using the word exterminate, murder.
I have the real feeling I evacuated 30,000 Jews already by shooting them at Riga. Is what I did evacuation? When they fell, were they evacuated? There are another 20,000 at least waiting for similar evacuation. I just think it is helpful to know what words mean.
There is a tension in euphemism like this, a sense of unease. Here, words are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not signifying as they normally would. And this feeling, it pervades the film. William Stuckart is arguably the most tragic figure in this movie. Stuckart was a co-author of the Nuremberg Laws, a set of rules that codified Jewish segregation and oppression. And now, during this conference, he's being asked to consent to the final solution, the rounding up and murdering of every Jew in Nazi territory, something with no legal precedent, something that cannot easily be justified by the Nuremberg Laws. Stuckart, then, wants his language to mean something, the text he wrote to do what it was supposed to do. As he says, he wants the law to bind.
My work, these laws, any legal code worthy of the name restricts the enforcers of the law as well as its subjects. There are some things you cannot do.
But the law does not bind. It works only to serve the whims of power, and while its commands may look concrete, they exist only to justify actions that have preceded them.
We make the law we need. Why am I telling you this?
There is, at the end of the day, no authentic relationship between Stuckhart's words and the policies of the Nazi state. And consider why this guy, Stuckhart, is even here, why all these Nazis are here in this room. The big SS boy in charge, Heydrich, spends the entire film trying to gain the consent of these people. He wants them to tell him that they are invested in this final solution and think it is a good one.
And the inevitable solution is what we, together at this table, will discuss this afternoon.
But the whole thing is a charade. Their affirmation of complicity is a forced one, and in any case, this is the plan, the edict of Adolf Hitler. What use do their words have? What really do they even mean?
We will accomplish this. I will not allow administrative technicalities to slow it down. Every agency will jump to follow my order, or asses will sting. And there are no shortages of meat hooks on which to hang enemies of the state.
Finally, we can interrogate what this film is about, what it depicts. I began this section by saying that it was a movie about the conference where the final solution was decided upon, yet even this seems somehow wrong. In reality, the Wannsee Conference did not change much of anything. Jews were already being exterminated en masse, and the people in the room did not see it as some life-changing event. Really, it was a formality, the SS consolidating the Jewish question under its control. Everything about Conspiracy, then, communicates one thing, that these men will speak to each other, and that everything that they need to say will be said.
Does it tear your heart out?
There will be rituals and laws and talk of sinister plans.
Beautiful.
There will be the appearance of meaning, but it can't exist here.
I've never understood the passion for Schubert's sentimental Viennese shit.
The very act of communication exists only for its own sake, to produce theater. To understand the contradictory nature of Godzilla, you have to look at the film's most interesting character, Kyohei Yamane. Yamane is a scientist, and when Godzilla is discovered, he doesn't want to kill the monster, but study him. This is for two reasons. The first is that he's a paleontologist, and this could be a huge discovery. You can see here Godzilla coming to represent the past. Him being killed does not merely rid the world of a monster, but of a primordial entity whose spirit, whose life has value, who is, in some way, a part of us. But I find the second reason Yamane gives even more interesting. Toward the end of his little speech, he says this.
Godzillaを殺すことばかり考えて、なぜ物理衛生学の立場から研究しようとしないんだ。
We must study Godzilla because he is resistant to radioactivity, and it would be good if we could discover why that is and replicate it. I get chills just thinking about this. It is one of my favorite lines from any movie ever. Less than a decade prior, the world was revealed to be a place far more vulnerable than anyone could have imagined. A city was decimated, around 100,000 people died, and all because of one bomb. 3 days later, it happened again. And since that day, the bomb only got more powerful. Here we have a monster. He towers over the world and kills people and destroys everything, but he could also redeem us. Godzilla could save us from the bomb because he is the one thing that the bomb can't kill. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a 2020 Charlie Kaufman film about a woman, we'll call her Lucy, who takes a very strange trip with her boyfriend, Jake. In some way, I've already lied about the film though. It's more complicated than that. See, the world Lucy inhabits is a kind of surrealist dreamscape, the invention of an elderly suicidal janitor. Years ago, the janitor approached a girl at a bar and she rejected him, barely noticed him.
I'm not even sure I registered him. There was a lot of people. I was there with my girlfriend. We were celebrating our anniversary, stopped in for a drink, and then this guy kept looking at me.
Now, he spends his final days concocting a fantasy for himself. A story with this girl where they took a long drive and met his family together and made it work. So then, what's going on here? Is this a story about Lucy or the janitor? Many an online think piece has been written trying to explain I'm Thinking of Ending Things answer this question, and they all come roughly to the same conclusion. Vanity Fair writes, older Jake has created a fantasy girl largely made up of books he's read and films he's seen. Den of Geeks writes, even though we are told the story through the eyes of the female narrator, she isn't real, she doesn't exist. Collider writes, while I'm Thinking of Ending Things is told from Lucy's perspective, she is simply a Tyler Durden-esque extension of Jake. In the end, these articles claim it's all pretty straightforward, actually. The janitor is the subject of the film, and Lucy his invented object. All of these articles have a point, of course they do. The movie makes it very clear that all of this is, in some sense, happening inside of the janitor's head in the days before he ends his life, and Lucy is a part of that. But even so, I think these writers here are missing a major yet kind of subtle point about this movie. Put simply, Lucy is always confused. In scene after scene of the film, she responds to the changing landscape of Jake's fantasy by being disoriented, upset, by thinking about how strange this situation is.
It's me.
No, it was me. Wasn't it me?
Sorry for the...
I was helping her with the dishes.
I don't remember Jake helping his mother with the dishes.
I know that. Ames.
Ames?
I know that.
Is that short for Amy? That doesn't sound right. That doesn't seem like my name.
What I'm about to say might sound overly literal, but I think it's an essential observation. That's not possible. It is not possible for a figment of your imagination to find itself confused by how weird your imagination is. If Lucy were simply part of the janitor's mind, what would she have to be confused about? She'd already know what was going on. As Lucy says at the beginning of the film, actions may lie, but thoughts don't.
You can say anything, you can do anything, but you can't fake a thought.
And Lucy has thoughts. So then, what is Lucy? Is she her own character? Is she an invention? Well, I think the one clear answer is she's both. Lucy is at once part of the janitor's mind and an entity separate from that mind. She exists and she doesn't exist. And when you take a step back from this strange point, this contradiction that is Lucy, you start to notice something. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is all about this, about subjecthood, identity. It is a movie about the impossible to determine process through which someone can be said to be a person, the way in which a discrete consciousness comes to exist. Consider Jake's parents. Throughout their scenes, they shift constantly in age and lucidity, going from young to old and back again in the blink of an eye. Watching them, we can't help but wonder, which version are the real Jake's parents? If the passage of time changes them over and over, such that they lose everything about themselves, then how could they possibly possess a singular identity or subjectivity?
People like to think of themselves as points moving through time, but I think it's probably the opposite. We're stationary, and time passes through us.
Or consider the pig. As the janitor kills himself at the end of the movie, he walks with this pig he remembers from his childhood who was infested with maggots. Now this strange cartoon, he says this.
Someone has to be a pig infested with maggots, right? It might as well be you.
There is no meaning to identity, to the people we think we are or the minds we think we possess. We could have been born as anything, as Jake or Lucy, as Judd or Curly, as a rotting pig on the floor of a barn. It is all fundamentally the same. I'm thinking of Ending Things is a film that describes entropy. Not the entropy of matter or energy, but the entropy of human minds in relation to other minds. The process through which we become people and unbecome people, through which we cease to be separate from one another, through which subjectivity fails. The movie is filled with references and allusions and ideas. Oklahoma and Baby It's Cold Outside and poetry and Dairy Queen, and you want to tell a story with that. This is the janitor's experience. This is about him, meaningful because of him. But the thing about coherence as a concept is that it requires the ability to cohere, to produce a unified whole, and the movie won't let that happen. Toward the very beginning of the film, Lucy shows her landscape paintings to Jake's father, and this scene happens.
How can a picture of a field be sad without a sad person looking sad in the field?
How can you know something is sad without a person who's sad looking at it? How can you create meaning without a person, without a subject? And maybe the answer is simple. You can't. There is nothing good in Godzilla's death. Where later movies in the series tend to conclude with an action sequence, a big climax, a triumph, Godzilla 1954 does not. By the end of the movie, the monster is not attacking Tokyo anymore. Now, he's just sitting in the depths of the ocean, bothering no one. We can't help but ask, if left to his own devices, would he even come back? Do we need to do this? As Godzilla dies, he lets out one of his iconic screams. But here, it feels different somehow. Before, Godzilla's noise was terrifying, inhuman. Now, in this moment, we come to realize that none of it was about us. He never wanted to menace anyone. He's an animal. This is what he sounds like. To kill Godzilla is far worse than whatever Godzilla could have done. It required starving the ocean itself of oxygen. Godzilla 1954 was, in no small part, a response to nuclear testing compromising the fishing yields in Japan's oceans. That is why he emerges, after all. There are no fish left for him to eat. And so it's striking that in order to finally kill him, they must finish the job, make the ocean barren. Godzilla is so big that to end him is to end life itself. We never get another real scene with Yamane. He gives his speech and then Godzilla wrecks Tokyo, and we never hear him talk about not killing Godzilla again. He doesn't come around, he doesn't change his mind in some emotional moment, there's simply an absence there. It's as though Yamane can't, the film can't, acknowledge what it's doing, what it's saying to us. Godzilla meant everything, but that's kind of the problem. In the end, we must destroy what the bomb cannot. So this video was sponsored by Nebula, my streaming service, and I think it's a pretty good time to be advertising it, honestly. As always, every month I put a bonus video on there. I have a bunch up now, like more than a dozen I think, and my new one about Keemstar and his interesting tweets about trans people should be out in a day or two. Lindsay Ellis has recently decided to only release videos on Nebula, and there are a bunch of those. And Abigail Thorne, aka PhilosophyTube, just released her play, The Prince, on there. And there's more than that, of course. There are tons of creators on the platform at this point. If you are interested in Nebula, it costs $4 a month or $40 for the full year, an $8 discount. It's a great way of supporting my channel, and I do genuinely think it's a good deal if you're interested in the creators involved. The link is in the description, so check it out. Anyway, that's the end of my video, actually the end of my series, 3 stories at the end of the world. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a really difficult project for me to make, and while I think it is messy, I also want to make more videos like it. If you did like it, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel or check out my Patreon. I also release bonus videos there. And with that, I have my Patreon question of the video. Tiyun asks, do you listen to Billy Joel, and what is your favorite Billy Joel song? I'll be honest, I don't really listen to Billy Joel all that much. I don't listen to him religiously, and thinking about it now, I can probably only name 4 songs by him. You know, the one where he's like, don't go changing, I like that one. The Piano Man, Uptown Girls, and Vienna. I like all those songs. I think Billy Joel is a great songwriter from those 4 songs. I would have to say Vienna of those 4 is my favorite at this point. It's the one I definitely listen to the most. I really enjoyed the line, don't you know when the truth is told, you can get what you want or you can just get old. What a tragic thing to say, especially to your child. When the truth is told, you can get what you want or you can just get old. Fuck off, man. Jesus. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Have a nice day.